ओम सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्त्वं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. We are studying Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, the first part, and we are studying the introduction in that part, Avataranika. And the main idea there is that from the Rishi of Upanishadic age, through evolution of our understanding, came incarnation in the Puranic age. And Saradananda Swamiji explains it spiritually in this sense that in the beginning of time, the man's mind was very simple. Society was not fully developed or artificialized. So man could easily understand that the world is temporary, the world is evanescent, the world is getting destroyed every moment. This led him to understand and realize that the reality is transcendent, that the reality is beyond this world. And he got the Nirvikalpa Samadhi in that way. But when he came back from that Nirvikalpa Samadhi, he saw that the same reality, which is absolutely transcendent, is also immanent, all-pervading. That reality itself is appearing as this world. So when this thing came, then came devotion. By realizing that the reality is inside me, outside me, everywhere in nature, in my body, in my indriyas, in my mind, in my soul, everywhere it is that one reality, then the devotion is born. And once man came to believe in this saguna aspect of the reality, he also understood that this reality is the creator, preserver, and destroyer of this world. And after creating the world, it has a desire of preserving this world. Now the creation of the world happens with an externalized mind. And if it is allowed to be externalized further and further, as we see in these days, then it will surely go to destruction. But if it has to be kept for some time, called the sthiti, then there has to be a force of pulling the man's externalized tendency little inside, backward. That is the great necessity of nature, of preserving this world. And for that purpose, he could understand that a special Leela of God takes place. A, the God who created this world, he himself assumes a human-like form. With full knowledge of his divinity, with full knowledge of the divinity of you and me and the whole world, a human-like body appears. And that is the avatar. So philosophically, the Sankhya's might have helped, but it is the Vedantic Ishvara. This is called the Ishvara in Vedanta. That Brahman, which is beyond this world, is also the cause of this world, cause of this Srishti Sthiti Pralaya of this world. Then he is called Ishvara. And this Ishvara alone can rule this world. This Ishvara alone can make this world stay for some time. And for that purpose, he assumes a special sport or Leela by appearing in human-like body, though without losing its divinity. Now, another chain, how the idea of incarnation developed in India was without Guru, we cannot proceed, and we appeal to that very God, Rudra Yatte Dakshina Mukham, Te Namam Pahi Nityam. You protect me by showing me your beneficial face. And this beneficial face of God does not mean that God gives us money or enjoyment. The beneficial face of God means He is our Guru and He lifts us from this samsara. So that is another thing. We saw that the Gurus are there and we understood that the Guru is the God's power working in him to lift the humanity. And so this slowly we understood that if that power is fully manifested in a man, he is nothing but God himself. So in this way, the Guru worshipped in India added to this idea of incarnation. And then he has stated that though the seeds are in the Upanishads themselves, this fully developed idea of incarnation we find only in the Puranic age. And we find the first mention in the Gita. After telling all this, he is telling in para number 8 that they were convinced that the infinite compassion of the Divine Lord would never let them to be doomed, however reprobate they might be, but that the Lord would in every age take form as an incarnation, discover new paths. That means suitable to man of that age. He would discover new paths suited to the man's nature and by that make self-realization easy for him. After that, in the 9th para, he says, it will not be out of place to give here a brief summary of the essential ideas recorded in the Smritis and Puranas. By Smritis, he means Bhagavad Gita mainly, and the Puranas. All the Puranas, mainly the Bhagavata Mahapuran, about the birth, action, etc. of the divine incarnation, who is by nature eternally pure, awake and free. In the Gita, we find this very clearly. यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानम् अधर्मस्य तदा आत्मानं सृजाम्यहम् परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे. Dharma Sanstapana does not mean creating a new sect, though it discovers new path. But Dharma Sanstapana means that the idea that I shall realize God, that is the aim of my life, he re-establishes in the mind of man. That is called Dharma Sanstapana. And so that is birth, action, etc. So Janma Karma Chame Divyam. His birth is divine. Two ideas are involved in this. 2-3 ideas. One is that humanity or any reproduction in the world happens usually by the sexual intercourse of male and female. But incarnations are exception. As a group, they are exception. Sri Ramakrishna's case, we find that his father was in Gaya and the Gaya Vishnu appeared before him in a dream and said, I will be born in your house as your son. And in those days, his mother Chandramani was standing in front of a neighbor's Shiva temple, and the light emanated from that temple and entered her womb, and she fell unconscious. And from that day, she conceived a child. So that is called Janma Me Divyam, physically. And Janma Me Divyam, from inside, we are born again and again due to the incompleteness of our life, unfulfilled desires of our life, the selfish desires in our life are never fulfilled, and that binds us. Forcibly we are born, luckily as a human being or as animals or anything. His birth is divine, means he is not born out of any selfish desire in his mind. He is born for the sake of humanity. So the purpose of his birth is different from ours, and the physical condition of his birth is different from ours. This is about the birth. This is about the birth mentioned in the Smritis, that is Gita, and also in Bhagavad Purana. And action, our every action, if you analyze, is born of this very selfishness, born of the imperfection in man. And even our desire to get liberated is out of our selfish interest. In them, there is nothing called selfishness. And so, every action of theirs proceeds from the desire to do good to humanity. So, actions are divine. Then, so many things, but I am telling in short the main principles. And birth, action, etc. Now, etc. includes everything. Their relations with people are divine. Their passing away or leaving the body is divine. So, if we study this, then what happens? The effect on our life is that we become mukta. We come out of this bondage of the sansara gradually. by Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mam Upashrita Bhavo Jnana Tapasa Puta Mat Bhavamarata. That many have been passing through this devotion to avatar, and then their raga, dvesha, bhaya, krodha, they drop down, they go away. And manmaya, they become filled with me. Mam upashrita, they take my support. And many like that, due to this change of consciousness, which is tapasya, like it, they became free. So, this is how the process takes place. Then, by his real nature, he is nothing but Ishvara. And Ishvara is always described as eternally pure, eternally awake, and eternally free. Unlike a jiva, he never gets entangled in or bound by his actions. We do actions as I am doing this action. Immediately we get bound. We get some action when we think of the fruit of that action, that immediately we get bound. But he has no I, he has no selfish motive, so his actions never bind him. For content in the Atman from his very birth, this is reference to Gita, 3rd chapter, that everybody is forced to do action, but there is a limit set there that those Atmani evacha santushta tasya karyam na vidyate. When the satisfaction, tripti and everything, joy is from the Atman itself, they do not, are not necessary to do some work. So, content in the Atman from his very birth. So, this condition of being content in the Atman is from their very birth. And so they are never bound. No selfish idea of worldly enjoyment arises in his mind, as it does in the case of a jiva. His whole life is dedicated to the good of others. Being always free from the meshes of Maya, he retains the memory of his previous lives. This jati smaratva, as it is called, comes to a man only if he is absolutely pure. And this jati smaratva comes to incarnations also. And here we find the great difference. What jati smaratva Thakur will have? That I was born as Rama, I was born as Krishna. That will not leave any worldly impressions upon his mind. He was born as incarnation previously also. Now in this respect, I want to add something. The Christians, when they see only one such person born in their country, so they think that never any other people can be born like that. They have no experience of that. And that narrowness, that there is only one incarnation, the Christians are stuck up due to that. Similar is our case. If somehow or other we are gripped by the idea that God can incarnate only 10 times. This Dashavatar Kalpana of the Hindus is as much an obstruction to their fully understanding the idea of incarnation, just as one incarnation obstruct the growth of the Christians. They are not able to appreciate that there can be more avatars. And they count 9 up to Buddha and then continuously looking for the 10th called Kalki. But in the Gita, Bhagavan says, Yada yada hi dharma, states a principle, not particular times. And again he says, Bhavo Jnana Tapasa Puta. And he says, Janma, that I was born several times and I remember all those. You do not remember. There also he does not say that I was born 7 times and now it is the 8th. Nowhere in the Gita. And if you turn to the Bhagavata Puran, it counts 24 avatars and then it writes avatara hi asankheya. Avatars are innumerable. Because in every age, some occasion arises and he has to be born again to discover new paths. One small point we find that Krishna says, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkrutam. This one point which people find hard to understand, even in the accepted list of incarnations. And so they do some distortion. That means, vinashaya cha dushkrutam. We find this specially in 3 incarnations. Vamana avatar did not destroy anybody. Vamana avatar removed Bali Raja from this earth and gave him the kingdom of Patal. Parashuram destroyed Kshatriyas. How many times God knows. Rama destroyed Ravana and hundreds of thousands of asuras. Krishna destroyed asuras right from his birth. After that, according to the old counting, there is Buddha avatar. And Buddha is not known to have killed anybody. He was compassionate, and the Angulimal, the worst dacoit in those days, was converted due to Buddha's compassion. Then if we believe properly, Jesus Christ, he did not kill anybody. Then if we look properly, Shankaracharya did not kill anybody. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not kill anybody. Ramakrishna did not kill anybody. So we would put in this way that he changed his style in that one respect after Krishna avatar. And as the great Swami Harshananji has talked about Thakur, we'll find it true right from Buddha. Dushtasya buddhe parivartanaya. The mind of the wicked man was changed by these incarnations. So that is a shift of the style of functioning. So that is the one point. Otherwise, we see the same chain in all the incarnations. So this is the 9th para. He retained the memory of the previous life. So Thakur remembers. In the life of Krishna also it is mentioned that it may be poet's fancy, but it is clearly mentioned that Krishna is sleeping on the lap of his foster mother Yashoda, and she is telling him the story of Rama, and he is half asleep. And when Yashoda tells, then they went to forest, and then Ravana came, and in the absence of Rama, he stole away Sita. At that point, this child suddenly gets up and says, "Oh Lakshmana, bring my bow and arrow. I want to kill that Ravana." That is a story narrated. So, now, the so-called historians, so-called, their standards change every moment. And they wrongly tell us some political parties, when they were in government in India, they made an affidavit in the court that there was no such person as Rama Baba. Or even if they accept, they said this Rama story came after Krishna became popular as an avatar. This is the distortion of history. So, Rama, Thakur says, Rama, the person who became Rama, the person who became Krishna, is born again in this body. So, our count, traditional count of avatars puts Ram, and you see, historically, culturally, in Rama's days, people's mind was very simple. Values were very clear. Ravana never says, I am a good man. Ravana says, I am a powerful man. I will do what I like. That is right. Don't talk to me of right and wrong. I will do what I want. That is not the same in the case of Kamsa. And why Kamsa? In Duryodhana and others, that they confuse the values. What is good and what is bad became mixed up in that time. And then, if we see the present day, what we call the Kali Yuga, we find the values have been reversed. Every good thing is called bad these days. Every bad thing is called good these days. So, this is the big changes came. And there, somebody has to answer the demands of mind of man, and it shows what are the real values. So, then he retained the memory of previous life. Then we come to para 10, the incarnation's unbroken memory. It may be asked, does he have that unbroken memory from childhood? The Puranas reply, although latent within him, it is not always manifest during his childhood. You see, they are born with a human body, human mind. So the human body takes some time to evolve, and the human mind evolves with the body. And when all the faculties of the body and mind are fully developed, then a man gets the memory connection of the previous life. So in the incarnations also, now and then they become aware of their mission and everything. But when the body is developed enough, when the mind is developed enough, then this comes continuously in them. In their case, when they establish themselves through Nirvikalpa Samadhi, then this comes to them permanently, constantly, and fully. Till then, that is what they say, latent in them. Although latent within him, it is not always manifest during his childhood. But as soon as his body and mind mature, he becomes aware of it with little or no effort. That means as soon as the body or mind are developed, automatically that comes in him. This applies to all of his actions, that he becomes clearly aware of why I am doing this only when the body and mind is developed. Though from childhood he is acting like that. Since he assumes a human body, he has to behave in all respects like a human being. He has to behave. That means body and mind have their own influence on our expressions in life. Incarnations give new shape to religion, new shape to the same religion. As soon as the body and mind of the incarnation fully develops, the aim of his life is revealed in him. Aim of our life is to be free. Aim of his life is to make people free. That fully manifests in him when his body and mind are developed. He then realizes that the sole purpose of his coming is to re-establish religion. Re-establish religion means re-establish the truth that man's aim of life is to realize God. And whatever aids are necessary to fulfill that purpose come of themselves in an unexpected way. That is another beauty. That for the fulfillment of their mission of life, whatever they want comes automatically. Automatically means nature is under them. So the nature gives them whatever is needed without their making special effort in an unexpected way. He walks in light where others grope in darkness. Due to our vision clouded by our selfish interest, we do not see things clearly. But he has no selfish interest. So he sees the light very clearly where we grope in darkness. Fearless. Our cause of fear is that we shall die or something will be taken away from us. Now he knows that he will never die. He knows that the whole world belongs to him. Nothing can be taken away from him. He will never die. So he has absolute fearlessness is his very nature. This is one of the most important signs. We see even people like Vivekananda afraid of the loss of eye in the beginning. While we, as per our knowledge, in our times, Sri Ramakrishna is the only person who is not afraid of anything whatsoever. Because inside he knows that he is not going to die, he has come for a purpose. Fearless. He attains his goal and beckons to men to follow in his footsteps. So because no selfishness, he quickly, by path dug out by himself, he attains and then calls us, come, follow this path. Untrodden paths leading to the realization of Brahman beyond Maya and of Ishvara, the cause of the universe, are discovered by him again and again from age to age. Very important statement here and very important. Thakur has made this very clear, not Shankaracharya. Please remember what I am telling here. Very important statement. We have seen that in the Nirgun aspect, we call him Brahman. In the Sagun aspect, we call him Ishvara. Now, if a man realizes Ishvara, only the Sagun aspect, Shankaracharya says he is in Ajnana, he does not have freedom at all. Sri Ramakrishna, on the other hand, says that if you realize the Supreme Nirgun Brahma, you are Mukta definitely. Even if you realize the Sagun aspect of God, you are Mukta. Now, how this thing is created, this difference? Suppose you realize the Sagun Brahman, then Vedanta and other scriptures will tell us you go to Brahma Loka. And how long do you stay there? One kalpa. Kalpa is made of thousands of yugas. So, kalpa means the world is created, stays, and is destroyed. How many millions and trillions of years pass? Till then you will be in bliss with Brahma. And very likely from there you will become fully mukta also. If you have selfish desires, you may be born again. So, selfish desires are almost washed out. Two ideas are there. I am united with God and I am identical with God. So with Ishvara, you will be united. What the Vaishnavas call, please remember clearly these things. Vaishnavas talk of 4 types of mukti. Salokya, going to that very loka where your God stays. And then Samipya, staying near God. Then Sarupya, you get the same form like God. And Sayujya. Sayujya is united with God, not identified. And all these 4 they call mukti. Now, we have created another loka. We means it has been created. That is called Ramakrishna Loka. So Ramakrishna Loka is same as Brahma Loka. Brahma Loka is also called Satya Loka. According to the form of God which we see as our Ishta, we call it. So Vaishnavas call it Vishnu Loka or Goloka or Vaikuntha. The Shaivas will call it Kailasha or Shiva Loka. And we shall call it Ramakrishna Loka. Now going to Ramakrishna Loka is also a form of mukti. And going beyond that is also mukti. So this is clearly stated here. Untrodden paths leading to the realization of Brahman beyond Maya and of Ishvara, the cause of the universe, are discovered by him again and again from age to age. So, any one of these realizations, the paths are discovered, whether you call it mukti or not. Because I will tell another thing in this respect. Rules also always have exceptions. But as a rule, the householder has this ingrained idea of subject and object in him. He can at most go to this Brahmaloka where he lives with the object of his worship called God. The sannyasi's mind, if he is a real sannyasi, is differently constituted. That is why he has become a sannyasi. He does not feel that I am half and I have to marry to make myself full. He does not feel that. And so he has become a sannyasi. So normally our scriptures will say that these sannyasis will go to Brahman, not Brahmaloka. They will not go anywhere. They will feel identified with God, their body will drop down. On the other hand, the householder has some selfishness, rather, the householder has this subject-object consciousness rooted in him. Women also, men also. Exceptions are always there. So, these people will go to some local. One of the saints in Maharashtra, Tukaram, is supposed to have gone with this body to Vaikuntha. Gone. And the logic will tell us, Shankar will point out, that going means coming back. Now a Mukta Purusha never goes anywhere. Here itself his life's purpose is fulfilled. He realizes himself as the not different from the same reality. So his pranas do not go anywhere. They get merged here itself. So this is, now exceptions are always there. The Grihastha's mind Thakur's disciples, we clearly see this even today. In Thakur's direct disciples, we see Balram Bose. At the end of his life, though in form he was a householder, but his mind had become a sannyasi. And so he was released. So we should understand that whole thing depends upon the constitution or nature of the mind. If it has ingrained subject-object consciousness, okay, he will go to Ishvara and he'll stay there one kalpa, and later on he may get illumined there and go or become mukta. So, normally. And a sannyasi, normally, that is what the difference. Some people criticize, saying Shankar has made only sannyasis and Thakur has given to householders. Nobody can change the inner structure of man's mind and his aim. But the terms will differ. Thakur calls this householder also mukta, provided he changes his mind. Now Shankara himself has to accept that the king Janaka was a man who was liberated in life. And to explain him, he says, like Bhagavan Sri Krishna. So he believes in incarnation also. Anyway, I hope I have cleared this point clearly. So here, because this line is here, that Thakur found new paths for realizing Brahman and new paths for realizing Ishvara. So, whatever name you give, that is how Thakur has fulfilled the inborn desire of every human being if he wants God. If you want Ishvara, get him. If you want Brahman, get him. That is how Thakur has done great good to all humanity without exception. And he discovered untrodden paths. That means the paths are already there. Discover means remove the cover. Untrodden paths. Paths are there, but they were not trodden before. Now the need of the man is according to his mind today. So he discovers paths which are not trodden. This is true about every incarnation. So at his time, he discovers new paths. The time and circumstances of the coming of incarnations as stated in the Shastra. Shastras here means Puranas. So, some new point now, Saradananda Swamiji is telling. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati viret tadatmanam srijamnam. So, same thing he states now. The authors of the Puranas did not merely analyze the actions and characteristics of the incarnations. They also came to a definite conclusion by studying again and again regarding the occasion of his coming to the earth. People now and then shout, please come again, please come again, please come again. It is not by your and my mind that he is going to come. With the passage of time, the eternal universal religion, not talking of Hinduism or this or that. What is the eternal universal religion? How to realize God. That is called eternal universal religion. With the passage of time, the eternal universal religion declines. Its influence of people goes away. And deluded by the inscrutable powers of Maya, men spend their lives thinking that the world and its pleasures are all important. That is what happens. The very aim of life change, value change, that I have to enjoy in this world. Eternal varieties like the self, Ishvara, liberation, etc. These are eternal, unchanging varieties. Verities means truths, facts, are looked upon as dreamland imaginings of, that is the decline of religion, are looked upon as dreamland imaginings of poets of a bygone age, steeped in delusion, that is, value is totally reversed, and darkness. So people gone into darkness do not see the light. They call light as darkness. Swami Vivekananda said in England and America, they think I am a person come from some thousands of years old civilization which is now dead and gone. Like that, people think of me here in England or America. Dreamland, imaginings of poets of a bygone age. So they call it epic also. Steeped in delusion and darkness, those poets. But when men at last discover that no amount of wealth and worldly enjoyment obtained by fair means or foul can fill the void in their hearts. They want fulfillment, and this never comes. Whatever they add from outside remains outside, and their heart always feels a gap. And when men at last discover, and when the waves of a shoreless black sea of despair overwhelm them, shoreless black sea of despair, they cry out in the anguish of their hearts for deliverance. It is then that out of his innate compassion for weak humanity, God incarnates himself and frees from the accumulated incrustations of ages the eternal religion. So religion is eternal, but it becomes encrusted by superstitions and practices and odd things, so many. He has to remove them and reveal the eternal religion. For deliverance, it is then that out of his innate compassion for weak humanity, innate compassion, God is always compassionate, compassionate by nature. We sometimes say God is not compassionate. Sri Ramakrishna's disciple, Ramakrishna in the worst condition in Madras or Chennai, some devotee said, Maharaj, it seems that God is not compassionate to us at present. He said, don't say like that. God is compassionate by nature. It is a different matter that this compassion appears as pleasant kindness and unpleasant kindness. We are now passing through unpleasant kindness. We will come to pleasant kindness also. Not that God is not kind, but in our life we feel unpleasant. So unpleasant kindness and pleasant kindness. God incarnates himself and frees from the accumulated incrustation of ages. I talked it like that because out of his innate compassion for weak humanity, God in weak humanity, that is why God is born again. Frees from the accumulated incrustations of ages the eternal religion, which then shines like the eclipsed moon freed from Rahu. The concept is that sun and moon are now swallowed by a planet called Rahu. This is a description of the eclipse. But then after some time it releases and then it appears as very bright. So that thing is now Saradananda Swamiji has taken as an allegory to explain. That religion, eternal religion, then shines like the eclipsed moon freed from Rahu. Then, taking hold of man's hand, he sets him on the path of religion. An effect is never produced without a cause, nor does Ishvara assume a body in his Leela till a universal need demands it. When such a want becomes overwhelmingly felt in every part of society, the infinite mercy of the Lord becomes, as it were, crystallized, and he appears as the spiritual teacher of the world. And once he teaches, it lasts for 500 years. This is the conclusion that the authors of the Puranas have arrived at after witnessing the repeated appearance of incarnation. So, not that they have made this rule, they have seen this and generalized it as a rule. This is the background, introductory background, Avataranика. What is the need of Thakur coming to this world as incarnation? It is the necessity of the age then that calls forth an incarnation of God, the all-knowing teacher of the world, who throws new light on religion. The land of India, we have seen that, which has always been conducive to the practice of religion and spirituality, has become holy and sanctified by bearing upon it. Let me see this, religion and spirituality. It's not mentioned at all. The land of India, does it say Dharma Bhumi Bharat? Dharma Kshetre Bharat. In the field of religion, India has found this. So, spirituality and religion separated, that is not Saradananda Swamiji's idea, so I was stuck. The land of India, which has always been conducive to the practice of religion, would have been sufficient. These days we separate, has become holy and sanctified by bearing upon its bosom the footprints of incarnations again and again throughout the ages. All powerful incarnations have appeared in India, even up to the present time, whenever the necessity for them has arisen. It is well known how, a little more than 400 years ago, the shining example of Bhagavan Sri Chaitanya. Now, people outside Bengal, many do not know at all, though the ISKCON is spreading that. Made people lose themselves in ecstasy in singing the name of Hari. So that was his method. For common people, lose yourself in singing the name of Hari, and that we have seen just 500 years back. Has such a time recurred? Did India, shorn of its glory and reduced to an object of contempt to foreigners, once again arouse the compassion of the Lord to incarnate himself? Actually, the whole world feels the need, but India, being the land of spirituality, feels it more directly. That this has happened will become clear on a perusal of the life story of that great soul, possessed of an infinite urge to do good, which is here recorded. So that is Avataranika. India has once more been blessed by the coming in response to the need of the age, universal need, of one who incarnating himself as Sri Rama, Sri Krishna and others, renewed the eternal religion again and again. So that is the Avataranika. Then in the next coming chapter, he will tell us how the Dharma Glani has happened, what is the form of Dharma Glani, and how to redeem man from that Dharma Glani Thakur is born. So that will be the regular first chapter. You call it historical background or whatever you call it, Purva Katha. So this Purva Katha's Avataranika is, we have seen, that means the development of the idea of incarnation, the Puranic idea of when it incarnates, and how the thing happened in this age will be described in the next chapter. That is how wonderful. We do not find any other scripture dealing with such a thing. Saradananda Swamiji's mind, let me repeat, has got hold of all history of all religions of the world. And then he is able to talk authoritatively on this point. And so it is his mind which is telling us that such an occasion, we should understand that. Because if we feel Ramakrishna as one of us will not benefit so much. If we see only the human aspect of him, will not benefit so much. Avatar has definitely the human aspect. We have to study it along with his divine nature. So that is what Saradananda Swamiji has done throughout this Leelaprasanga. We have taken it last to study, though chronologically this part comes in the beginning. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakasvam Sarvadharma Swarupakaha Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanam.